Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Veterans Day. It's November 11th, 2020, and if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Although we are joined here today at this Veterans Day Town Hall under different circumstances, I do want to extend my deep and personal gratitude to the veterans that we honor today. This country, the greatest country in the world, is founded on principles of freedom and liberty. Protecting those principles are the highest calling. Veterans are the men and women whose commitment, whose love of country, whose sense of duty, whose bravery protects the freedom and liberty that every one of us enjoy every moment of every day. Our freedom of speech, our freedom of religion, our ability to participate in our constitutional government, every one of those are shielded against attack by the men and women who wear the uniforms of our armed forces. In the 5 years that I have served as mayor, I have had the humble privilege to recognize the heroism of those from our city who have served their country. At the dedication of memorial poles all throughout our city, I have spoken about how young men from our city, barely out of their teens and barely commencing their lives, hearkened to the call of duty and marched to far-off lands to fight for the United States of America. As the nation remembers those who have served in our military, perhaps seldom discussed is the long history of Native American military contributions. The warrior pathway has been shaped by Native Americans. In fact, they have the highest per capita military service rate in the United States of America. Without these valiant warriors, Veterans Day would not be what it is today. Long before it was common practice to honor our veterans, Native Americans have prioritized their therapy and recovery while simultaneously celebrating their military service. This is something all of us can learn from. As a member of the Navajo Nation and U.S. Army once put it, being a warrior is, quote unquote, about courage. And courage is not muscle and strength. It is about standing up for what is right. And that is the warrior way. When we pause and consider the journey of the soldiers and warriors, we marvel at their courage. To leave the security and comfort of their hometowns and their families to embark on training, to live in unthinkable conditions where mortality lurks in every move. Every bit of it inspired by duty, buttressed by courage and in pursuit of the highest ideal, our nation's liberty, our individual liberty. History teaches us that our liberty and freedom come at high cost. There are those forces who despise the notion of the freedoms on which this country, the greatest country in the world, is built, and who would like to destroy it. Our military, the men and women we honor and salute today, are our security. It comes at precious cost. Too many have paid the ultimate price, so we must never forget their bravery and their sacrifice. General George Patton said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn those who died. Rather, we should thank God that they lived." We thank God for the soldiers who carry our nation's colors and whose bravery defends our fundamental beliefs. Our military is drawn from among our family and our friends and our neighbors. We must take every chance to support them, for they protect us. Veterans Day is a time for us to consider why America has ventured into battle and to be grateful for the men and women fearless enough to do so. To our veterans, I say for myself and a thankful community, Thank you. I would now like to welcome Marc Silvestri, the City of Revere's Veteran Service Director and the embodiment of what it means to be a soldier.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marc Silvestri, Director of Veteran Services, and we're here in honor of Veterans Day. This year has been difficult, to say the least. COVID-19 has changed the way we've done so many things, and unfortunately, it's changed the way we've celebrated Memorial Day and now Veterans Day. We decided here in Revere to have a Veterans Town Hall, which Congressman Seth Moulton, does every year. He got the idea from a book written by Sebastian Junger called The Tribe. The reason it's called The Tribe is, one, the United States military is, yes, the biggest tribe in the United States. A brother and sisterhood that can't be broken. Bonds that last a lifetime. The reason Congressman Seth Moulton does this, and the reason it was called The Tribe, is back in the day when Indian tribes ruled the continent, they would go to war and hunt. Upon return, they would gather around, and their warriors would speak to the tribe and the children, the women, and they'd let them understand what they did. The tribes felt as though this took pain, strain, anxieties, depressions, what we would probably consider PTSD, off the shoulders of the warriors and place it throughout the whole tribe. This way, no one feared the warriors when they returned. They understood what they went through, and they could help them through it. Today, we're going to see some amazing stories. Some will just be basic and to the point. Others will be heartfelt and emotional. But throughout it all, I want to say that some of the most amazing people came before you today to discuss what a beautiful country, their military service, and what that is meant to them and has done for them. A little bit about my service. I joined the military late. I'd like to say for God or for country, but when it came down to it, I needed a job. I needed health insurance. I needed a roof over my head. I just had a child who was then 3 years old. I was in and out of work. And like I said, I needed stability. I joined the Army on a whim. I was actually at a friend's house. A television commercial played. And I asked him if I could have a recruiter come to his house. No exaggeration, within 30 minutes, there was a recruiter at his door. That was Halloween Eve 2006. 2006, November 14th, actually, 2 days after Veterans Day, I was in Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. I knew at that point that the country was in war. I was going to do a combat MOS as a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. And I realized I was probably going to end up in either Iraq or Afghanistan. So we understood in basic training how serious it was. We understood that more or less we'd probably be leaving to go straight to war. And so many of the brothers I served with in basic did get them orders. They did go to Iraq. And some returned heroic. Others never made it back. I was a lucky handful of that graduating class that got sent to the Big Red One in Fort Hood, Texas. The Big Red One, 6'4" Cav, was just standing up in Fort Hood at that time, and we were getting ready to head to Iraq in the following year. 2007, I arrived at Fort Hood. I got to my unit and we began to train. And we were training to go to Iraq. We even went through a national training center in California with the understanding of we were training in Iraq. And if you are in the service or in the military, you know that training in the National Training Center is more or less a mock of where you're going to battle, mock cities of Iraq and Baghdad and whatnot. During that time at NTC, we had a unit, 173rd, flew in to tell us that we weren't going to Iraq. We had less than 2 months, and we were heading to the mountains of Afghanistan. We arrived in the mountains of Afghanistan, Cop Lowell, known to the locals as Camp Hell. And we fought. We fought a lot. It was actually Camus, Afghanistan. Cop Lowell was the cop we were on at that time. It got its name from a soldier in the 173rd who lost his life on a mission prior to us arriving there. We got there on July 4th, 2008. And from that day till we left in late May, early June, we fought almost every day. We were embedded with the New York Times. We were dubbed Time Magazine the bullet sponge of Afghanistan. And throughout 2008, 2009, into current time, we were the most attacked base in all of Iraq or Afghanistan. We fought hard, and we fought daily. It was a shock when we arrived. We got there in the middle of the day. We landed in what was a fish bowl of mountains. And everyone in the military knows you're always taught to take the high ground, but we did not have that. Our enemy knew where we were, knew the backyard they were in, and they were fighting and fighting fierce. We luckily left there with not one casualty. We seen brothers from the Afghani army die. We watched Afghani security guard members get mortared and lose their lives. But for us as a whole, we all made it back in one piece. And we are actually blessed to have done so. On leaving, my commander was quoted by the ABC News as saying, only people that will realize what was done out here are the 60 cavalry scouts that were actually out here doing it. It was pretty amazing. During that deployment, I earned a Bronze Star with Valor. I earned a Purple Heart. I was injured in combat with an RPG struck my fighting position. Coming home, getting out of the service, which I thought would be easy, was nothing but. Some dark times pursued, and through struggles, a strong network, family love, and a strong community, I was able to pull through, come out of that dark time. Now thinking of it, I guess that's what this event was made to do back in the tribe's time, was to help the community share the wounds of war, to accept, to honor, to respect all veterans of all eras, no matter if they're combat vets or not.
I'm Ira Novoselsky. Many of you know me as a supporter of veterans everywhere. Everybody knows that Veterans Day is for those who are still with us and have served and wore the uniform. People also know that Memorial Day is for those that we have lost. So this holiday, we honor those who are still with us. As far as I'm concerned, many, many years ago, back in 1968, I first joined the Army Reserve. I was still in college when that happened. I served my 6 years, and during those 6 years that I served, I went through the same training that anybody went through with combat. I was never deployed. I was always prepared to deploy, but it just never happened. There were times that we were all packed, ready to go to Germany for supporting our troops, but it was always rescinded. In 1986, I was asked to join as a prior service person to the Mass National Guard, which I did. And I served 21 years from that until I was 60 years old in 2007. Now, during that time, and also during the time that I was in the reserve, I, as a Jewish war veteran, was mentioned many times not to be a person that should be in the National Guard. They called me a Jew. You shouldn't be here. You don't know what you're doing. But I prevailed. I had drill sergeants that wouldn't let me go to chapel on Friday night or Saturday morning. But after prevailing, I did go. I had to make up training, but I made it up. I was in the trenches. I dug foxholes. I was 11 Bravo, which is infantry person, until 1996 in the National Guard. Then, after my years of being 39 years old, they felt I was a little too old to go into the trenches. They made me a supply sergeant in the National Guard. I was stationed in Melrose, at the Melrose Armory. Also, after that, I became a recruiter with the State Mass National Guard. And I was stationed in Milford. And I did. Every weekend, I had to change different locations to do my job. But in the National Guard, I did my support. All my troops, even after I left, even when I left the infantry, they were deployed for United States service. Many of our guys and gals since then have gone overseas. They've served, they've been in combat. They've done their support. And it's very important that we all realize that. Just because anybody didn't go in combat doesn't mean they were not a soldier. We wore the uniform. Now, there were many times when I was in the reserves and I was on travel options. In the airports, people would stare at me. I was spit at. People didn't like us during Vietnam. That's when I started. I've gone through Vietnam era. I've gone through Gulf War era. I've gone through terrorism era. I've been there. I've done that. And I'm proud to have worn the uniform. Over the years, back in 1978, after I got out of the Army Reserve, I started getting involved in veterans organizations. I joined the American Legion in Revere. I joined the Jewish War Veterans in Revere. And I was a post commander in both organizations. I enjoyed doing it because we were helping veterans. We did things for them. I along with my friend Al Terminello, started the Revere Veterans Committee, which we gave out scholarships, and we did barbecues to raise money for our veterans. For Veterans Day, which we did for 15 years at the Beachmont VFW, to show that Revere organizes for Veterans Day all the time. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I thank all our veterans out there for remembering those that are still with us and those that have gone. Thank you very much, and happy Veterans Day.
My name is Sergeant Michael Trovato of the Revere Police Department. I served with the United States Army, originally from January of 2002 to January of 2005, then again from March of 2009 to April of 2010. My first deployment was to Iraq, primarily Baghdad, from April 2003 to August 2005. I served with the 1st Armored Division, 2nd Battalion, 37th Armored Regiment, stationed in Freiburg, Germany. We deployed to Iraq in April of 2003. We were in Baghdad for about a year long. We got extended in April of 2004 after the Battle of Sadr City, and then transferred south to the Al-Qut, Najaf, Kufa area, where we spent another 3 months fighting the Mahdi army of cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. And I left Iraq that original time in August of 2004. Returned back to Germany, where I met my lovely wife, and then ETS'd from the Army in January of 2005. Became a police officer here in Revere in 2006. I was eventually recalled to active duty in 2009. I went back to Iraq with the 2nd of 300th Fires Brigade out of Lander, Wyoming, a unit of the National Guard, and served with them in Iraq from March of that year to April 2010. My wife is a German national. We met while I was stationed there, when I was playing sports and being active in the local German community. And she came here to the United States about 2006 time frame, and she's stayed ever since and loves it here. She's currently a green card holder and is pursuing her U.S. citizenship. The Army, on the whole, was a great experience, which has sort of set me up for the rest of my life and instilled in me a desire to serve and to protect the community that I live and work in. It's bittersweet, the Army. You always look back on the good times and remember your experience fondly, and your mind tends to forget some of the worst parts of being away from your family, of being in a combat zone. When people ask me about my Army experience or my military experience in general, I usually reply to them one thing. I said I loved it, except for the fact that they make you go places you don't want to go, and once you get there, they make you do things you don't want to do. However, those places I had to go and those things I had to do were done in service of this great nation and the freedoms and liberties that we all enjoy. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it in a minute. I joined the Army in response to the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Centers in New York on September 11, 2001. I left my office job the following day, went down to the recruiting office, and signed on the dotted line, and then left for basic training the following January. And that decision was based in large part from on the actions of my uncles, my great uncles, who had lined the block at the recruiting station following the attacks on Pearl Harbor in 1941. And that generation stepped up for their nation, en masse and without question. And I figured that my generation had an obligation to do the same, and who better to do it than me?
Good afternoon. I'm Specialist Hernandez. I feel proud to take time in my day to honor our veterans. I'm a veteran. It took some time for me to even be able to get those words out of my mouth, and it still doesn't flow smoothly for me. Most people who haven't served can't see or understand the toll of that label. So please be sensitive to our veterans because you don't know their whole story. I'm here today so you may know some of my story. It's nothing heroic, it is just me as a soldier. I enlisted in the U.S. Army back in 2003 against my parents' wishes. Yes, I was a little rebellious when it came to standing up for what I believed is right. Not being born in the U.S., I was and am still grateful to live in such a great country. My way of showing my gratitude was through serving. At that time, I was not looking to getting anything out of it. I was 18. I didn't know about my options or what I was getting myself into. It was right after 9/11, the government was sending troops to Iraq. I completed basic training, and I was in the process of graduating. the advanced individual training. I received a phone call stating I was being deployed, and I needed to go back and pack my bags and make sure all my affairs were in order. I was assigned to a National Guard brigade of 120 deployable soldiers. 17 of us were females. We all sat in the plane as we flew over, and you could tell in everybody's faces we were all afraid. I just worked with an S1 office known as an administrator. I volunteered during my tour of duty in a short time to become a command sergeant major driver in theater. I went through my ordeals. There's not really much to share, but the basic soldiering. After serving 9 years, I made the hard choice to get out and focus my efforts to raising my children. Now, I was out of the military 7 years and really struggled with PTSD. I thought it was just go away over time, but I was wrong. Through our Revere VA rep, Mark, he pointed me to the right direction for help, and I focused on myself for some time and learned to cope. My family and I made the decision that I would return back into the service, where I am in today. In closing, I would like to thank veterans of past, present, and future. It is because of their selfless service that paved the way for others, like myself, to achieve success that we have. A prime example, I received a text from a friend this morning, and she was a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard, and she wrote that it's official. She had been selected for Brigadier General here for Massachusetts. Again, thank you for those opportunities. It's an honor.
My name is Arthor J. Minichiello Sr. I'm 95 years old. I went in the Navy back in 1942. 9 days after I was 17, I went in the Navy. I left high school. From there, I went to boot camp, Newport, Rhode Island. I went to gunnery school, I do guard duty. After that, we went to, I met my brother up in New York, and we took, for the night we went. Then because he was on the Iowa, and I was on going to be on the New Jersey. I went down to the island. I went aboard the USS New Jersey as a flank owner. When a flank owner is when your brand new ship is commissioned. First, we went over to Pearl Harbor to pick up ammunition. From there, we went out to the South Pacific. We went to the Marshall Islands out in the South Pacific. From there, we went to bombard the islands, to Iwo Jima, all those islands we went to bombard them. My mother, when I was down in the South Pacific, my mother passed away. We never got home to see my mother. My brother John was also with me in the South Pacific. He missed my mother too. When I came back from the service, I got a job with the post office. I worked 32 years as a letter carrier, and that made my day. I had a good job. I want to thank you for being here. God bless America. God bless Revere. God bless all the people in Revere. A great city. I came to Revere back in 1951 when I got married. I was married 53 years before my wife passed away. Yeah. She was my pride and joy. Yeah. I see my grandchildren quite a bit. I see them. They're living in Revere. Happy Veterans Day, and thank you very much. I enjoyed this talk. Thank you again.
My name is Ken Holgersen. 51 years ago, I was Sergeant Ken Holgersen, assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, 2nd of 501st Delta Company, second platoon, second squad, which I was a squad leader. It began in 1969 when I was going to Bryan and Stratton for computer programming. When I had done a semester, when the government came out and said that you're no longer deferred, that left me out in the cold. I knew I was going to get drafted. I got a job for a while, and then I volunteered for the draft. Went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, along with advanced infantry training there. At the end of advanced infantry training, they asked me if I wanted to volunteer for NCO school, which I accepted. I went there, 13 weeks of school, came out a Sergeant E5, ended up going to Fort Polk, Louisiana, spent 9 weeks there, got my orders for Vietnam there, and this is my story. Approximately 23 hours flying time it took to get there, stopping in Alaska, Wake Island, Okinawa, then on to Vietnam. I could not believe how hot it was when we arrived in Vietnam about 2 a.m. in the morning. They opened the doors of the plane, and everybody just broke out in a massive sweat. And I said to myself, my God, if this is how hot it is at 2 a.m. in the morning, I can't imagine what it must be during the day. Well, I came to find out. We went through a little orientation, finally got assigned to my company, Delta Company. Got all that gear, got on a Huey. We shipped out the Firebase brick, which unknown to me, me and this other kid that was with me, we were sent out on an ambush. First day in country, first night, didn't even know what was going on. We just followed what everyone else was doing. And if I could tell you that it was a full moon that night and everything that moved, of course, was the enemy, which was not true. But in your own mind, you're thinking that. We got out of that all right that night, and then we started on our missions. And if I could just back up a second, I wanted to just let people know what the life was like in the day of a infantryman in the jungle, in the steamy jungle, which was probably about 110, 115 degrees. You had to deal with all sorts of bad stuff. The only way I can put it, bad stuff. You had snakes, you had fire ants, you had scorpions, you had wild animals that we heard at night, and spiders, bees, ants, a whole array of stuff that you had to deal with every day. Oh, I meant that my favorite was leeches. Not really. I can name on a few accounts of what it was like. The one that strikes me the most, that bothers me the most to this day was, I'm laying on the ground, looking up at the constellation, and all of a sudden I feel something crawl up on my right leg, about half on my boot and half on my ankle. And I swear my shirt was doing one of these. That had to be one dumb snake, because he had to know that I was there, because my heart was pounding out of my chest. But thank God, crawls up on the left leg, and it seemed like eternity when he finally left and crawled off into the jungle. That had to be the worst experience as far as bugs and animals that I had to deal with. Fire ants, sit down on a tree that was all moss, and I couldn't believe how soft it was, and I'm bouncing up and down, say, wow, this is beautiful. Then when I looked down at my crotch, there's about 5,000 ants all over me. I had to stand up, shake myself silly, and to this day, I don't know how I didn't get bit. So much for the bugs, and the leeches and everything else was horrible. Every day you had to take malaria pills and salt pills because you had to keep sweating, or you're gonna do a meltdown. You're gonna go in a shock, which has happened to a few people that just want to just lay there and die. But being who I am, it wasn't going to happen on my shift. July 12th, we were ordered to take and occupy this hill, Hill 805. And if you look up and you Google it and whole nine yards, you'll see the event, because that was one of the major battles that went on. We took the hill without any resistance. Everything was fine. We're digging in, and again, I'm laying on top of the bunker, and I'm looking at the constellation, and I'm on guard. And little did we know that the enemy was crawling up the hill towards us on my position. They fired an RPG that hit the bottom of the bunker next to us, and all I remember is the sparks from the explosion of the rocket. It just looked like 4th of July, one of them balls that just explode. And at the same time that went off, I had set a booby trap on a trail coming up to this position, because it was the most likely avenue of approach, with three Claymore mines. That went off. There was an exchange of fire. No one got hurt that night. Everyone was joking around. Everyone was laughing at me and the whole 9 yards. And the next morning, we have to go down and observe the area where the explosion, where I had my booby traps, where the explosion occurred. When we got down there, it was not pretty. It was a mess. There was, it was just horrible. The guy that maybe shot the RPG or whatever, his belt was still intact, but there was shreds of pants on it and everything else. But there was no body, no visible body, so you could not count that as a kill, because you had to have the physical body in order to count it. Don't ask me that reasoning. That was the higher-ups that come up with that garbage. All right, that was the first night. Second night, that was about, I think it was about 2:30 in the morning, or either 2:30 in the morning or it was 10 o'clock at night. Well, the next night, prior to that, during the day, we got a message from command that we could be expected to be overrun that night. Now here you got 20-year-old kids burning letters from home, pictures, everything else, because you think that's what's going to happen. Had to fix bayonets on your rifle, if you don't know what's going to happen. And 10 o'clock, kind of like on the nose, here they come again. And through the madness of the people in my company, who were unbelievable warriors, as far as I'm concerned, we held them back. Unfortunately, there was a few people on the other side of the hill that, in another platoon, that got killed. That no need to be, but that's what happened. Well, now we spend probably all day cleaning, naturally cleaning your rifle up, making sure your bunker and everything else is still intact and whatever. The third night they come again. At this time, I am not in the bunker this time. When I first went down in the bunker the first night, the blast from everybody's M6, there was 3 of us in the hole, and everyone blasting away. It was just too hot on the ears. So I made a little position outside on top of the side of the bunker. Well, someone threw, it was either a satchel charge or or mortar round. I want to say it was a satchel charge because the concussion took me like a paper doll and threw me down in the hole. I'm hanging upside down. I'm looking at the kid in the foxhole, and he's mouthing, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And I can't hear him because my ears are ringing so bad off my head I can't stand it. I couldn't, at first I couldn't see either. And for that 1/1,000,000th of a second that this all happened, I saw myself in my backyard on my blue little 3-wheel tricycle, stuck because at the time we didn't have hot top, and I was trying to get loose. And I didn't find out till actually probably last year when I talked to a psychiatrist from the VA that he said to me, "You were close to seeing your maker." I was okay. I could deal with that. I just wanted to know what it was, and finally found out. We ended up 5 nights on that hill, and finally we got the word we're going to move out. So my squad was the last one to leave the hill because we had piled up all the ammunition that we couldn't carry, and my job was to blow it in place. So we went down off the side of the hill, yelled "fire in a hole" 3 times, and blew that pile of ammunition to Kingdom Come, I hope. And all I remember was raining shells and just the stuff falling out of the sky from the explosion hurt you. So anyways, we catch up with the rest of the company and find out that the helicopters were canceled. We couldn't leave until the next day, the next morning. So that means we don't have an NDP site, which is usually you find high ground and you set up in a circle. So you got coverage for 360. We had to sleep like basically on the trail. And my squad was the last one there. So I ended up with a M60 machine gun with about 3,000 rounds on it, looking through back then they call them starlight scopes. Today they call them night vision. It was the same thing. Everything looked green. And no one slept. We were up all night. And I can remember the next day that when I opened up the what was I going to say? Well, when I put the gun away, or the night vision thing away, all I was seeing was green dots all over the place. It was weird. Okay, so now we're sitting here. We're waiting for the choppers to come in, because we definitely want to get out of there because we know it's a hot zone. And the kid that was in the hole, he was only 5 days in country. And you could tell he was nervous, he was scared, he didn't know the routine yet in the whole 9 yards, so I kind of watch out for him. We were sitting on a trail, and he was sitting in front of me about 3 feet away, and then about 3 feet in front of him, there was a NVA soldier, who used to be an NVA soldier, who got captured or he surrendered. And the government makes these people scouts to assist you when you're out in the field. If you capture someone, you can talk to them or give you signs or whatever. Well, this particular scout, because this was a hot area, and he probably felt that he didn't want to get captured, he decided to end his own life by pulling a pin on a hand grenade. I climbed over my rucksack and started down the hill, and for some reason, I came up with another M60. And I just started lighting the jungle up because I didn't know if we were getting attacked. Nobody knew what was going on at the time. I stopped, and I heard the medic screaming up at the top of the trail that we were on. that he needed help. So I gave the gun to somebody else, and I crawl up the hill. And it was Wilford Warner, unconscious. He had numerous burn marks on his face. The medic had opened up his shirt, and he had a hole in his chest. And that hole went right through him and come out his back. So we had to, I helped the medic patch him up the best we could, get him out on a medevac. And then I come to find out 3 days later, when he was on a hospital ship, that he died. I thought I always helped him. But it was God's will, I guess. But so that was that. We got to we got back to go to the rear. When we were in the rear area, we found out that this fire-based ripcord that was about a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away from us, the NVA wanted this hill. It was a real steep hill because we were on it one night. And there was a Chinook helicopter, the one with the 2 rotor blades on it, was bringing a load of ammo to the base when it got shot down, and it crashed right on top of the ammo dump. And that just blew the hill to smithereens, and then the NVA just stormed the hill after that. And we had to write that off. And you look back and you say those people that died, for what? And you give it back to them too. So, but we're back in the rear. I waited a little while, and they sent us back out there. You want to talk about nervous? After they had B-52 the area, they sent us back out there to see what was going on. We went out there, and you couldn't even tell it was a hill anymore. It was destroyed. It was like a parking lot. And they quickly got us out of there, which I'm thankful for. And we went back to the rear, and I ended up getting a rear job because the kid that was doing it, he was going home, and he picked me to learn what I had to do there. Got the rear job. You still had to fly out with helicopters if the jungle is so thick you can't even see daylight sometimes. That's how thick it was. And if the helicopter goes out with all sea rations and supplies and everything else for the troops, then if it can't land, then you have to go out there. You have to ride out in the chopper and then throw all the stuff out the door so they can get it. So I did that for about a month and a half. Finally, I got my orders to report to Benoit Air Force Base that I was going home. So I went to a place they call Eagle Beach, which was kind of like a little place to relax and try to forget, but you never do. And from there, I got on choppers, and I ended up getting on a flight coming home. And the funny part, it's like almost 23 hours flying time. On the way over there, I don't think I slept a wink. And on the way home, I think the only time that I woke up is when they woke me up when we were landing, because it was just an adrenaline rush that you were going home and you were through with this stuff, and you're going to go on, try to make a living and be happy, I guess. It was kind of sad, though, when you get home. You were kind of, I remember I get off the plane, and there was other people on the same plane. And one guy walked up next to me and said, "Take that uniform off, you baby killer." I mean, that's what you had to. I know guys that got spit at and take the uniform off and the whole 9 yards. And, you know, I really feel sorry for those people, because if you had really known what you had to go through over there, maybe it would be a different attitude with these people. I don't know. And then I came home, got a job, started a new life. I didn't find out till 50 years later that I got it when that NBA soldier had blown himself up, that I have a piece of shrapnel in my elbow still. There's something that I asked the VA to look into 100 years ago, but they never did. Or they couldn't find my records, or same old baloney. But life goes on. You try to forget, but it doesn't happen that way. These guys that I was with, my lieutenant, I still talk to this day. I got to tell you a funny story about this one. 13 years had gone by. You're busy with a new life, and you know, not that you forget these guys, but you don't keep in touch like you should. And one night I was really down and out, and I said, you know, let me call him. So I had his home phone number. I call the number, and his wife answered, and I said, is John Shipley there? And she said, with a Tennessee accent, no, he's not. But she gave me his phone number at Yellow Freight where he worked. So I immediately hung up. I didn't tell her who I was or anything. Immediately hung up. I dialed that number. The guy answered the phone. And I said, is John Shipley there, please? He told me to hold on. 2 minutes goes by. He picks the phone up. He goes, this is John Shipley. How can I help you? I said, this is all I said to him. LT, it's time to ruck up. He went just like this. After 13 years, Hoagie, is that you? If I could tell you, I spent the next 3 minutes crying my eyes out. That's how close we were. Very, very close. And even to this day. And that's my story. I hope you got some insight on what it was like for a day in the bush. It's just all the baloney that you had to go through, really, with not so much, you know, the shooting and killing and all that stuff. It's you're in somebody else's backyard, and it's tough to learn. You have to do it by OJT, and that's it. Thank you.
I'm Richard Evans, I'm a United States Marine, Semper Fi. Thank you for having me on this TV show today, on the eve of the Marine Corps birthday, the eve of Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day to all veterans. You know, we're gonna walk around today and feel secure and feel nice and safe, and people fought for that. And this is the greatest country in the whole entire world, and it was a great honor to serve my country for the greatest military in the entire world. I started my journey into the military as a little kid. I loved to play Army. I loved to play Manhunt. I loved to play hide and seek, and I had a lot of family members that were in, and my grandfather was in, you know, World War. Uncles were in Vietnam also, and, you know, totally different times. You know, 2001, you know, when I went in, when 9/11 happened, when I joined, is totally different than the Vietnam War. And thank you to all military veterans that came before me, you know, to pave the way. When I was a kid, loved to play Manhunt, loved to play Army, and I loved all of the shows on television, all of the movies about war, and I was really infatuated. My Uncle Mark was a Marine, and I really looked up to my Uncle Mark. Just as a family member, and you know, anybody that knows a Marine, they just love being a Marine. Like, Marines love Marines, and, you know, they love our service, and they love other branches of the military, but Marines just love to be Marines, and they love to talk about being the Marines. And I watched him, you know, the pride
and how he conducted himself. And I really looked up to that as a kid. And so later on in life, when it was time for me, and it was almost a no-brainer, which was, what was going on at that time was I was in a little bit of trouble. I worked for the post office. I didn't have much purpose in life. I didn't have much, I felt really like I was missing something. I felt like I was being had by life, like something was just like not right. And I was drinking a lot. I was getting into a lot of trouble. Nothing really big, nothing really serious. But I remember just feeling like, I got to get out of here. I got to do something with my life. I just can't live like this. There has to be a bigger purpose, for me. And I remember seeing a commercial late night after I was coming out of the bar. It was a commercial of a ship just going somewhere. And in the middle of the commercial, it said the few, the proud, the Marines. And then it had the squared away Marine with a sword and his dress blues on. And I said, geez, I know this is, my destiny. I gotta talk to the recruiter. And I talked to the recruiter, and 9/11 had just happened. There was really, really sensitive times. And there's this thing in the military called the DEP program, delayed entry program. And I told them, never mind that. I need to go. Like, if I don't get out of here within this next month, it's not happening. I was in the bar every day from the second it opened to the very end. They'd have to kick me out. Usually it would be morning time by the time they kicked me out. And I remember coming out of a little gray out, a little blackout, and I was in the recruiter's office. I came out gray out of a blackout, and I was in when I came out of my grayish blackout, I was in Paris Island, South Carolina. With my which would be, my very first real time experience with being in the military was that first day in Paris Island, South Carolina, which I'll forever be grateful. I was reborn, or as we like to say, was reborn in Platoon 3017, which I'll never forget. I'll never forget my senior drill instructor, which was Senior Drill Instructor Staff Sergeant Beagle. Like, you never forget your drill instructors, man. And he was, to me, on all accounts and all fronts, a superhero to me. He looked like a superhero. He was just a Marine's Marine. And I don't think you don't get that job. You don't get that MOS in the Marine Corps unless you are, you just have to be a different type of animal to become a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, especially during those times. It felt like they sent all the badasses, sorry, I don't mean to swear. They sent all the bad, they sent all the best Marines to like Paris Island, South Carolina, because they knew we were in wartime. And they knew we were going to go handle some business over in the Middle East. And, these, prior to that, I heard that the boot camp got a little soft, but not this time. This time around, it was just really like the old Corps. Nothing's like the old Corps, but they brought the old Corps back. Like, it was, it was boot camp for real. Like, you knew you were in boot camp. There was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of training, and there was a lot of training, as they called it, and there was a lot of making of the Marines, I would say, if I could just keep it Disney. A lot of making of some really good Marines. And I performed really well in boot camp. Oddly enough, I excelled. Became a guide. I lost that position. Became a guide again. Lost that position. And so would be with my, most of my military career. Started out as a private first class. Private first class, Lance Corporal. Then I got busted down to private first class, then back to private, and then, would earn my way back up, due to just, being Marines, like doing Marine Corps stuff, being out in town, getting in trouble, and stuff like that. And what proceeded to happen after boot camp was I went to School of Infantry. I went to Squad Leader School, rock climbing school. At that time, they were doing military, or Mount, which is military operations on urban terrain. I went to Mount School. From there, we got, our duty station. Duty station just, oddly enough, was in Kainoi Bay, Hawaii, which was like, you couldn't have picked a better a better duty station. And even sometimes I would say to myself, I don't know how I deserve this. But when we'd get to training, it was just a little bit different during the training, because we'd hike up volcanoes and we did some really some crazy trainings, and then you almost seen like the dark side of those beautiful volcanoes or those beaches, because we did a lot of training, and we did a lot of trainings on the beach, and it was enough training to almost make you not like the beach or like volcanoes anymore. It's really wild and high speed stuff where you're learning combat tactics, combat strategies. Shortly after that, we went to jungle warfare training school, desert warfare training school, going towards my second year in the military, and we were training. I didn't know it at this time, but we were building up to go over to the Middle East. So we were in the middle of desert warfare training, and we got the call. We got the call that Bravo Company, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marine Division would be going over. We got the call. We went over. We're a detachment to. We're stationed in Bahrain. We're a detachment to FAST Company. So FAST Company stands for Fleet Anti-Terrorism Support Team, and they're deployable in 24 hours or less anywhere in the entire world. And we're a detachment to them, stationed in Bahrain. And we did a lot of trainings. We did a lot of trainings there. We did a build up, and then we started to get some missions. Some of our missions included ports, defending harbors, defending oil tankers. Some of our missions and some of our movements, different sections of the company went to different places, but we were on a lot of ships. We were on a lot of ports. My unit what we started to see is is what really happens during wartime. Which is hell, and I don't wish that on anybody. We started to see a lot of the brothers die, a lot of, we really got a chance to see what people were made out of, and, unfortunately, in November this time was the Battle of Fallujah, so it's very emotional time for me. I lost a lot of friends, during this time, and, I love those brothers that I served with. I love being a Marine. I love seeing what I was made of. I loved, because I too felt like a superhero. I felt like a superhero when I put those boots on, when I put those camis on, when I put that uniform on, that Eagle Globe and Anchor. I really felt like I was a superhero. I felt like I was a superhero among superheroes, and it was just a really good feeling. It was a really good feeling to see what you were made out of. It was a really good feeling, to be with other superheroes and other brothers, and watch them do some heroic shit. I've seen some heroic stuff happen. I've seen, men lay down their life literally, and I remember thinking about being on the streets and thinking about people that, friends would say, oh, I would die for you, I would kill for you. And then watching brothers in the Marines really do that. I think I hear this often a lot from a lot of the young kids. It's like, oh, you jumped on a grenade. It's like, I had brothers that really jumped on grenades, and would give their life for the brother to the right or left, or for our country. And I think, it's a tough month. It's a beautiful month. I talked to a lot of the parents of Marines and brothers that have passed away. I talked to a lot of Marines and military, a lot of Army Rangers and cavalry with Marc Silvestri. That's one of my guys right there. I try to stay in contact with a lot of veterans, during this month, and also like to make myself available too to receive any phone calls or to give any love. But just, back to what it was like, just, war is hell, and it's like a strange thing. It's like, I don't wish that on nobody, but also I wish I was back there. I wish I'd do anything to go back. And there's just something about it. There was just something about, that time and place. And I really would give a toe. I'd give a right toe just to have, one more opportunity, to be back in the Marines. And what started to happen, from desert warfare training to defending some ports, defending some ships, and really getting busy and getting down to the nitty gritty, is what we started to see is a lot of casualties. And one of my One of my company's helicopters got shot out of the sky, and everybody in the helicopter, had died, and that's a strange thing. It was a strange thing that to witness. It was because everything's really fun in games. You think everything's kind of fun in games until it like really goes down, and there's bullets coming down range, and people are dying, and you getting up close and personal with some people, and I think it was really, really, really sad and traumatic stuff. When you drape an American flag over your best friend, or you have to put your best friend into a black body bag, or answer to his mom and try to explain to the family like what happened, or why you weren't there, or why you didn't protect them, and then people become part of a fraternity that really maybe some people want to be a part of, but part of a fraternity that I think nobody wants to be a part of, which is losing some really really good men, and I always think of this, and I don't know if anybody experiences this, is like sometimes I feel guilty. Sometimes I feel like I served with some really good men, and I'm really a selfish guy. Like I'm really like selfish, and I think I served with some really good men, some like young kids, like 18, 19 years old that died in combat, and I always wonder. I wake up some mornings going, I don't know why I'm still here, and these guys were like really good men. On really good Marines, like Marines, and on a lot of days, I'm like, I guess I got a plan. I guess God or the universe got a plan for me, because sometimes I think about these young kids that had their whole lives ahead of them. They had their whole career ahead of them, and I think they had kids and and families, and I was just a selfish. Prior to me going into the military, I was just a selfish drinker. I was just drinking, getting drunk, and was like, hey, I got nothing else better to do. I might as well go, try to change my life around. But I served with some kids who really loved our country, and not to say that I don't, but they loved our country, love our country, and laid it all down, laid it all on the line. For us, and some days, just as a veteran, I'm like, I don't know why they're gone and I'm still here, and I can only say like maybe I hope I hope that God does have a plan for me, and the universe does have a plan for me too. What I would like to say is thank you to any veterans, and I learned this from Marc, but Marc talks about the whole veteran, so I want to start to like really incorporate that and thank the veterans and thank the families that the veterans also come from, and that's it. That's all I got.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow. Today we heard some amazing stories from amazing people, veterans of our community, and I am honored to share this day with them. 2020 has changed the way we've done a lot, like I said before. But virtual Veterans Day, I think, was a hit. I want to thank the veterans of Revere, their families. I want to thank Donna Driesen for all the hard work, effort that she puts in. Every day she dedicates herself to making the lives of our veterans in Revere happier, more pleasant, and easier. Thank you all, and have a good day. Happy Veterans Day.